This is Two Pricks Talk 80s Flicks.
Welcome to the second episode of Two Pricks Talk 80s Flicks. We have our hosts Mike and Darren.
Hey!
And this week we will be discussing Creepshow, a film that I've loved for many years, ever since buying the VHS box that my uncle had, reading the blurbs on the back, some of which wasn't actually accurate to the film.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think the crate was wrong or something. I can't remember. And yourself, has it been the one you've known for a long time?
Well, do you know, it's weird because I was trying to think about this earlier. I've got a funny feeling that the first time I came across this film was probably through yourself.
Really?
I've got a funny feeling that the first time I watched it might have been either round at yours one night or at one of our Venture Scout all-nighters.
I remember watching it at the Venture Scout all-nighter that we had.
Yeah, I remember there was about half a dozen of us in the Scout Hall.
Yeah.
Sleeping bags, TV and everything, video set up. There may have been crisps and soft drinks.
Was this not the one that we did in the Venture Scout room rather than the hall?
We see, that's where I'm not sure. Because I remember there were at least two. One was downstairs in the big hall and one was upstairs in the sort of small room. And I'm sure, the funny thing is, I'm sure one of them we did another anthology film, which was one of the old British Amicus ones that were actual adaptations of some of the old EC comics, either Vault of Horror or Tales from the Crypt.
Are you sure? I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
Right, okay. Well, maybe it wasn't, or maybe you weren't there, I don't know. Because I can remember we watched things like Return of the Living Dead 3.
That's right. Arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia. I'm fairly sure we tried the Tommy Knockers as well.
We did, and it was absolute gash.
It was dreadful, yes, yeah.
I mean, either way, that's still a fairly long time if that was Scout time for you. I mean, that's 25 years.
I mean, yeah, so it must have been early to mid-90s that I saw it, so probably about 94, 95. But yeah, loved it since then.
Yeah, I mean, coming into it as a Stephen King fan, had you seen George A. Romero films beforehand?
I'd probably seen Dawn of the Dead, but
Right.
that would have been the only one I'd have seen up to that point.
Yeah, it was certainly the first one for me. I think the next was Return of the Living Dead. No, Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead, yeah.
I mean, you're straight into this sort of ironic, winking, don't take this overly serious sort of film, which has always been the way I've liked my zombie films.
Yeah, but watching this, it's like I was saying before when I was talking about Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt, this film is a complete love letter.
Absolutely.
It's an homage. It's, Romero and King, both fans of those comics, both wanted to do something. So I was having a wee read about the origins of this one. And then when it was about 78, 79, so Romero would have been out trying to shop around Martin, the vampire film he did. And around about the same time, I think Warner Brothers were talking to Stephen King about doing Salem's Lot. So the two of them ended up chatting and getting together, and it was like, this guy's, we're doing this vampire film for this guy. You're doing this vampire film.
Okay,
why don't you two get together? So they did and chatted away. And the two originally said, right, let's do something together. And their original plan was to do The Stand.
Oh, really? I mean, have you seen the TV miniseries of it?
Not for a long, long time.
It's shite. is the one-word summary, I'm afraid. It doesn't grab you. It's got all the basic plot elements and everything, but this is a book of great immensity, and there's no feeling of that. It's kind of like Superman 4. You can kind of feel it being filmed on a parking lot rather than, Metropolis.
Which is a shame.
That's a great what if, eh?
It is, yeah. So that was the original idea they had, and then Romero suggested, well, his original idea sounded, I actually like the sound of this, was to do a series of anthology films, but all using a slightly different style. So they would start, the first one would be a full screen, black and white, done in the 30s sort of style. And they would move on to maybe doing the 50s, so maybe in colour, bright, 3D even, working their way onwards towards present day. King knocked that back and suggested, why don't we just do an homage to the EC comics? And then 2 months later came back with a script.
Oh, right, okay. Well, which probably didn't take him that long, given that, quite apart from how fast the bastard works, is that several of them are adaptations of previously existing stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 of the 5 stories are originals, are existing ones. So there was Weeds, wasn't it? That was the Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill and the Crate. But the other 3 completely new stories.
Actually, I was reading that something to tide you over is takes a large bit of its plot from an existing story. I can't remember the name of it, but
It's quite similar to The Ledge.
that was it. Yeah, The Ledge.
Basic idea of it
Revenge
is
story.
very similar. And then, of course, The Ledge turns up in Cat's Eye a few years later.
That's right, yeah. Creepshow
Yeah,
2.
yeah. But we'll get to that at some point. One thing I meant to ask, right, because you might remember this. Does King talk much about EC Comics and those sorts of things in Dance Macabre?
He does, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember, but I was sure he must have.
Yeah, it was a lot of where his inspiration comes from, not in terms of plotting and the style, the literary style, obviously, because we're talking about comic books,
Yeah.
but the sort of gleefulness, the bloodiness that's not to be taken overly seriously.
Yeah.
And, there's always a lot of 50s elements that pop up in King's books, even if they're set in present day. Like the car in Christine, obviously It. For some reason, he's always drawn back to that. I mean, obviously, it was his childhood time, etc. But I guess it's like the sense of order, like it was very much under President Eisenhower. It's the same with Porky's, isn't it? The sense of order, which they are sort of rebelling against.
Yeah.
This is America when it was number one and everything was great and it was the number one superpower and yada, yada, yada. And yet, what lurks beneath?
What else is there? There's the commies.
Yeah, it's very much his stamping ground, in the same way that when I read Enid Blyton books now, it's like I find it amazing, like how many sentences ring a bell and go, oh my God, I remember reading that. Like that phrase connects with some long forgotten memory.
I get that occasionally with films and TV and songs, not so much with books, funnily enough, but yeah, there'll be something that just suddenly flashes up as part of a film, and I realised I'd seen it 25 years ago as part of a little promo thing in the middle of the night on ITV or something.
It's one of the great things about the internet is that you can find these bloody things that you've got a fragment of a memory. Remember that film where I sent you like the basic plot and then you told me the film straight away? It was Squirm.
Oh yeah.
The one about the worms that come out the shower taps?
Electrical storm turns them all ravenously man-eaten.
What stays in the memory was that we went to stay in a caravan with my granny and granda. And do you know where Bewley is? Just outside of Inverness.
Yeah.
And we went to the campsite showers, and I remember just having the fear that worms would come out of them. So I can't remember if there was a film shop on the site. Probably not. I must have seen it somewhere. Maybe like in one of the Bucky video shop. Cruikshanks, maybe. They had all these dodgy 70s films, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, bless them for it. Like.
But yeah, for some reason, Creepshow completely passed me by. But funny, when you were talking about being able to find this stuff online, I was having a look and a read of some of the old DC comics. We're talking about the 50s here. But they are surprisingly gruesome. I mean, there are some really messy and horrible, but that glee with them as well. The
glee
sense of fun and dark comedy, and there's a big moral element to it as well. There's a sense of people getting exactly what they deserve here. Totally being the architects of their own doom,
And this, I think, ties into Stephen King's own method of characterization as well. There's good people and there's bad people. There's some people who are good people who become bad people, but there's not many people who are like very mixed up and in between. There's not a lot of moral ambiguity. Characters are very strongly drawn.
There's a point about that in this film, I think, that kind of puzzles me on that score.
I have a similar point about that as well, so let's see if it's about the same part. Okay, well, let's take it from the top then with the film.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the intro with Tom Atkins as the dad and Joe King, now known as Joe Hill, of course, as the son.
Very unfortunate name, really, isn't it? Joe King.
I know, you'd expect a writer to have the ear. It's like calling him Professor Hesser or Mr. Lister or Dr.
Dr. Proctor.
Dr. Spock. Yeah.
You can see why I changed it. It's nothing about, don't want to be compared with my father as a writer. No, it's just because my name sounds bloody ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not quite Zowie Bowie or Moon Unit.
True.
Yeah.
Dweezil. Yeah. Funny as well, watching opening scenes, that the set dressing in his bedroom, freeze framing it and looking around that room. Right, we've just read Dance Macabre, and we're just going to throw so much from that in here. We're going to have Frankenstein masks, we're going to have little robots and flying saucers and posters on the wall of Bela Lugosi, Dracula,
Oh, yeah.
and all this stuff. And it's just fantastic.
Uh-huh,
I wanted
yeah.
to live in that bedroom.
Yeah, but there comes a stage in a boy's life, normally when he's about 11, 12-ish, when he is obsessed with the macabre.
Probably when I started reading the likes of King. I think I read it for the first time around about 11 or 12.
I think it was about the same age for me, yeah. It wasn't the first one I read, though. I think, I could be wrong, I think it was Carrie, or maybe Pet Cemetery. But it was the one that convinced me that it was bloody genius. Honestly, the storytelling in that, the narrative chops are just phenomenal. So yeah, we've got our first character in Tom Atkins, who was also a John Carpenter actor.
He was in Halloween 3, he'd been in Escape from New York, and the year before this he'd been in The Fog with
The
Adrian
Fog.
Barbeau and Hal Holbrook.
Right. As an opening structure, it introduces you to the comic book concept straight away. So as an opening umbrella, it's fucking brilliant. Then you've got the ghost ghoul coming in at the window.
The creep.
Yeah. Last episode we were talking about how poor its structure was. But here, bang on. Fucking brilliant. So there's that sense of gleefulness that we see through the film. Here's this pain in the butt dad, and he's going to get his comeuppance. Fuck you, dad. Fuck you, anyone who takes my magazine.
And then we're into that lovely animated opening sequence.
Oh, yes, indeed.
All the colours and just the bright, rich comic book. They're almost like panels from a comic book, let's be honest.
They are indeed, yeah.
They're very well represented in that.
Yeah, and then obviously you're straight into the panel for Father's Day, which I think is one of the best ones out of the film. So I love the way it just transitions from the comic book to the film. So we have the four of them sitting round, Ed Harris gently sipping a cup of tea, just waiting until the rest of them could go away so he can bone his girlfriend.
Who looks like she would be very eager as well.
Then it's rather preppy family.
Well, we've got Aunt Sylvia. It's a very Katharine Hepburn performance.
Well, very starchy.
The enunciation and the style of...
As we're saying, this very starchy figure. But what I really like about this one is the arc of her character throughout. She goes from being very starchy and superior, sitting there with her gin and her cigarettes. And then by the end, she's totally terrified and very human.
And by the time she's let her hair down.
You hear that squeal of panic. She goes, I think that's really good.
This first segment, I like it, but it's the one that feels most like a slasher movie, isn't it?
It's the country house, people going from room to room getting killed, having to go out and look in the woods. It's got all the elements to it.
Yeah, there's a sort of a Halloween or Friday the 13th kind of thing to it. You've got this malevolent zombie there, but who can manipulate things by the power of his mind, basically.
Then we see the entrance of Aunt Bedelia driving up.
I love great Aunt Bedelia.
Cackling away, looking... is she smoking a cigar?
She's got one of those wonderful long cigarette holders.
Yeah. Used by every dastardly villain ever. She drives along and then she's sobbing on the grave. She's putting in flowers into this rather neglected looking gravestone.
The obelisk.
Then she's sipping her drink and the whiskey spit. Is it whiskey or is it bourbon? Is it Jim Beam? And of course, this ties in. Spilling the whiskey to resurrect the dead harkens to James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake. Have you heard that story?
I've heard of Finnegan's Wake. I've never read it and I'm not familiar with the story, so go on.
Well, I don't recommend it. The basic story that it comes from is an Irish tale of a guy who got buried and then whiskey was spilled on the grave. And then that brought him back to life, whiskey being the water of life, etc., etc. So there's that nice little allusion there. Stephen King's quite fond of James Joyce. He mentions him quite a few times in On Writing.
Ah, right.
He says there's a bunch of great James Joyce stories. So you know how Joyce started going blind towards the end of his life?
Yeah.
Like he suffered severely from cataracts. So when he was writing, he used to wear a milkman's uniform. So it would look nice and bright and then reflect onto the bit of paper. So, there's this sort of myth here. So she's sobbing on the grave, still talking, obviously still grief-stricken. And then out pops the zombie.
And never really picked up before just how fucking great as a performance, as a strong and affecting piece of acting that is. It's just her talking to the grave.
Yeah.
I love that. It's almost like it's too good a piece of acting that it's really quite surprisingly touching.
I mean, there are a lot of very good actors and very good performances in this film.
I was just completely buying this, forgetting for a moment that I was watching this horror film and what was about to happen. I just got completely sucked into this wonderful bit of acting there. And then, of course, the hand comes out.
Who hasn't been at a recently dug grave and just had that little fear in the back of their mind?
Something's going to happen.
I love the way that red light comes out of the back, It gives it that sort of cartoonishness.
Oh, yeah. And that's throughout the film as well, the use of particularly red and blue.
Yeah, the really bold colours. It's kind of winking and saying, this is not to be taken overly seriously.
Well, it is. It's that comic book look, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the style of it. But just the way that the lighting completely turns as well, just...
But as a zombie, he's pretty fucking horrific. The way that there's maggots coming out of his eyes and everything.
Yeah, you cannot knock the makeup and the effects work in this film. There's a lot of very impressive stuff here, and fair play, all credit to Tom Savini.
Tom Savini, yes, absolutely. And so from that, we are led to, must be our absolute favourite scene in the film. We go back, and the daughter and Ed Harris are dancing together.
This is Ed Harris, who is a very serious actor.
He's a serious actor.
Proper serious actor. This is a man who I did not think had a sense of humour. But clearly he does. I mean, if you ever want to see how serious he can be, have a look online for the outtakes from The Rock, where he starts losing his shit with a phone. It's this sense of, my God, you do not want to get on the wrong side of this guy. But lo and behold, here he is, with hair, but yet still looking bald, given some of the most 80s dancing and the weird chicken head bobbing thing he does.
It's a thing of beauty,
It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, and she's just jiggling about, the hussy.
Properly getting stuck in.
Some lovely dancing on the Ghetto Blaster.
Yeah, it probably dates the film more than anything, doesn't it? One scene never forgotten.
So Mrs. Danvers comes in with her bottle of champagne, but they're having to keep it on ice for just now because Aunt Bedelia has still not arrived. But Richard steals it, the drunken Jibbo.
Ain't life grand?
And they're staying out the window, and outside is very, very blue. So Ed Harris pops out for a cigarette because you can't smoke inside, which is unusual for the 80s, but it is quite a stately house.
There's an ashtray in there. It's made clear there's an ashtray in there quite significantly. Oh, and apparently that ashtray turns up in every single one of the stories in the film.
It does indeed, yeah, we'll have to point out as we go through. But handily, plot-wise, he goes out of the house, and he's mysteriously drawn towards the graveyard. And there's a spooky mist going through, and there's a full moon. He finds the bottle, picks it up.
He finds the bottle, doesn't notice Bedelia, doesn't notice that the grave's completely open. I mean, this is where you could probably start to pick some pretty big holes. And he falls in, and then there's just that horrific grinding noise. And then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then that wonderfully horrible yell and squelch.
Then the chuckle.
He's a zombie who is actually really enjoying himself, isn't he?
Yeah, so off to kill, eh? So he shuffles in, and the girl's now wondering, where's my bloody boyfriend?
But again, there's this odd sense of how much time has passed here.
So he does the noble thing and agrees to go out, does Richard, while the mum goes into the back kitchen, which is awfully blue.
And then, Mrs. Danvers has had it.
That poor woman is just collateral. She's the equivalent of the contractors working on the Death Star. She was just there.
Well, she's not complicit in this in any way, is she? I mean, was she there in the house when Bedelia killed him?
Well, you go on a murderous rampage. How picky can you be?
I'm just wondering, because certainly Bedelia and Sylvia have obviously both covered this up. If she was involved in the cover-up as well, then, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but it's not explicated, is it? We don't know about that.
It gives you enough. It doesn't need to go into as much detail.
It is a nice chilling bit when you see the mum open the door and then Mrs. Danvers follows out and then I'll have your head.
Yep. It's that great sudden reveal. He's only standing about 2 feet away from you, but unless the camera sees it, you don't see it. and then boom, once he's there, head twist. Oh, right the way around.
So they go be in the kitchen, trying to find where's everyone gone. And then it's Father's Day! I got my cake!
My cake. That is a voice from straight from the grave, isn't it, as well?
And then the head with the candles and the icing on it. So then you've got that weird cartoony red background behind each character that comes out.
Oh yeah, the sort of zigzaggy flash shots, all the red and blue.
Aye.
Yeah, I quite like them. I mean, they're really comic book. In fact, I think they're actually used in comic books. I don't know if they're called, I might be wrong, with splash panels, something like that.
All right, yeah.
No doubt somebody who's got a comic knowledge will come back and correct me on that one. But
it's slightly surreal as well.
Yeah, there's something about it, the way that it focuses on one individual or one moment for longer than, because it's a locked off shot. It's quite an odd thing to look at.
Yeah.
But it works really well. It adds a nice wee touch and, of course, leads nicely into the animated transition to the next stories.
That's right, yeah. That's really cool.
Which one do you think is the best of those shots in the film?
Oh, I like the one with Richard.
Yeah, he goes for it, doesn't he?
Yeah. There's the cockroach one as well, and they're creeping up on you when there's actually pictures of cockroaches looming up on E.G. Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So what we were saying earlier about how although there's a gleefulness about all the bad shit that goes on, there's usually a moral sense. People get their comeuppance. But that surely isn't the case in this one, because the dad was a total prick. He was demanding cake all the time. And Aunt Bedelia, probably quite rightly, got sick of him, off him. So that's probably fair enough. But then he comes back and starts nailing everyone. Richard's only problem is that he's a bit too fond of the wine. And Ed Harris's is that, well, he's just an excruciatingly bad dancer.
He's game.
She rides around like a wanton hussy. But do any of them really fundamentally deserve to get killed? Maybe the mum, just for a prissy attitude.
Well, I think if you look at it on a fairly simplistic level, it's like, right, well, one killed him, the others covered up the murder. So let's look at it on that base level. Regardless of how much of a horrific person he was, I'm finding myself almost siding with the fucking zombie.
Maybe it's revenge against all the preps. Fuck you, preppy family.
Let's be honest.
I mean, I like this one because I like the mum's performance, and then how you see that transition to total fear and a sort of animal panic. Obviously, I like the dancing. I like the brother. He's a bit of a dick to his sister, but when it comes to it, he still agrees to go out and look. There's a lot of things going on there. I mean, it's all kind of simplistic, but at the same time, it's entertaining.
It is, yeah, and it doesn't outstay its welcome either. I mean, it's only about 17, 18 minutes long, that segment.
Yeah, there are some very memorable visual scenes as well. I got my cake, you've got the splatter, you've got the zombie coming out, you've got the
dancing.
You've got Aunt Bedelia's mad drive. You've got her wailing at the graveside.
Yeah, I cannot praise that scene at the graveside enough. I really do love it. So that's Father's Day. So
then it reverts back to the comic book style with like letters, and then we're introduced to the lonesome death of Geordie Verrill. A lot of people have said that they don't much like this one either. They find it dull, but it's very slow creep style. It's precisely what I find appealing.
I'd agree with you on that one. Before, I would have said, yeah, it's the one I kind of think is quite a weak segment, but I actually think it plays really well. Let's get it out of the way first of all. Stephen King is not a great actor.
No, but is it shite, is it funny, or is it both? I think it's both.
It's entertaining.
He's deliberately being pretty crap, I think.
He's just sort of playing an absolute nunkhead.
Yeah, it's very broad. Yeah.
Apparently, Romero's advice to him was to play it like Wile E. Coyote when he's just run off a cliff.
Yeah.
Give it a cartoon performance, and by God, he does, with a pair of Bugs Bunny teeth as well. Do you think
Yeah.
he manages to acquit himself well in that?
I think he does. As you say, it's a very cartoonish segment, but at the same time, as it goes on and he starts to do that Daddy, I'm a goner.
Yeah, it gets
But-
quite sad, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
As it goes on and you see that, the various points at which he's going through this, I couldn't help but find myself thinking, shit, what if that was happening to me? What would that be like?
I think the key word in the title is lonesome. Here's a guy who is entirely by himself. No family. There might be a phone, but who's he going to phone? He's a backwoods farmer. There's no internet. There's no way of looking up your symptoms. The doctor might be in the next town, God knows how many miles away.
Sure.
He's somebody who's very much isolated.
And yet he doesn't seem unhappy with his lot, really, does he?
No,
Except it gets on with it.
he's not overburdened with great intellectual self-doubt, etc.
No, I got a funny feeling he would be the target voter for. Let's not go down that road.
Let's not go there.
No.
I was trying to find reads, but published in Cavalier magazine, which I'm sure we've browsed upon it sometime or other in our lives.
Possibly Nave.
It's not been collected, so
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, it's not in Skeleton Crew or Night Shift or any of those early anthologies, which is odd. You wonder why.
It's a bit. That's a surprise, though.
So the plot of the segment is straightforward enough. He finds the meteor, tries to cool it down, throws water on it, it splits, and there's some very purpley liquid which he touches. Then he heads back in, saying, well, maybe get that sucker in the morning. And you see him with his dreams of going to the university, the Department of Meteors.
Again, very Looney Tunesy sort of dream. The various dream sequences where you see things like the doctor rolling across the floor and with the syringe or whatever it is.
But it's well known that every university has a Department of Meteors.
Of course.
Then he settles down to some wrestling, which is Bob Backlund against the Wild Samoan, I think.
Really? Good grief, you've done your research there.
Oh, yeah. Bob Backlund was the WF champion before Hulk Hogan.
Get away.
Yeah, he was champion for like 6 or 7 years, something like that. And the Wild Samoan there's like a lot of Samoan wrestlers. There's like a whole family of them. And normally they played the crazy savage stereotype. But one of them was The Rock.
No.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. At some point they stopped doing all this ridiculous racist stereotypes and made the guy a hero. I think he was a villain at the start, what they call in wrestling a heel. But he got popular and became the champion. So he's sitting there glugging Ripple Red, which must be some awful Buckfasty sort of booze. And then he spots, the spots on his fingers.
Blisters. Which you could think, right, okay, well, you've got blisters, you've just touched something that's probably one of the hottest things that you've ever come across in your life. So, fair enough. And then a few hours later, they've gone green and mossy.
When he first sees him, he does go to the telephone, and it's one of those handheld ones with
Yeah.
real outback woodsman here. Then he's imagining the doctor's office. I'm afraid they've got to come off, Mr. Verrill.
He's sharpening the cleaver.
This is going to be extremely painful. As the skeleton slides by.
The skeleton that just drifts by behind him. I think they actually use that little xylophone, don't they, as well? That ding, 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 ding.
But then his gradual transformation, he sees a bit on his tongue. I love the way the later bit transitions across the screens, exactly like a comic book. And you see the weeds starting to grow across the farm, across the tap and everything. You're like,
The little establishing shots suddenly showing you that how quickly this is spreading and how much is going on here.
you go, oh, don't it itch?
Oh, yeah. With his massive mossy beard.
Partly he was allergic to all that makeup.
I saw that, yeah. I think Tom Savini was talking about that, is that his body seemed to resist every single thing they tried to make him up into Geordie Verrill, including they had the idea of using these mossy green contact lenses, but he just couldn't wear them. And
there's the moss starting to sprout out of his armchair, on the carpet, the ball. And then we cut to a wee bit later, and there's the huge beard that's like, gotta get a bath.
And then there's the saddest, most mournful moment. Oh no, not there.
Not there! See, when he sees his dad in the mirror as well, though. The dad is straight out of American Gothic, isn't he?
Oh, he is, yeah. Same actor that plays the scientist, isn't it?
Oh, really? Oh, right.
I think there's only 2 actors in that entire bit. I'll come back with another one here. You were talking about the wrestling. When he wakes up later on, and there's a film on the TV. That's the 1937 version of A Star Is Born.
Oh, wow. So even after talking with his dad, he goes, "We got this stuff on my daddy, and I haven't got her." So he has the bath. He goes, and then we cut forward, and then he's absolutely covered.
He is just a bale of moss at this point.
Must be internal as well, and it's not just green like grassy bits. There's actual bits that look like flowers and shit, and it's everywhere.
Exactly, and it's this sort of last moments of humanity, really, isn't it? Got that? Oh, please, let me be lucky just this once.
Is that horrible watery voice? Please let my luck begin.
Please, and then
it kind of reminds me that sense of pathos as the end of The Fly. When he directs the shotgun to his head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a million miles away from that, actually.
Yeah, bad shit's happened, and it's the only way out.
It's just they're turning into a monster or something. Still, that last bit of humanity.
Yeah, the self-awareness that this is happening. That really adds to it, I think.
Yeah, and it's something that does turn up quite a lot in a lot of King's stories and short stories, doesn't it?
Like Christine?
Yeah, Christine definitely is some of it in there. There's Grey Matter.
Grey, oh yeah. There's bits of it in the character of Henry Bowers when he knows that he can't dominate the primary school like he used to. Like there's a bigger world out there, and he feels threatened by it. And it's the same with Jack Torrance in The Shining. Yeah, he does do that, and it's a nice touch. Helplessly drifting along on this ocean of madness, and you're aware of it, but you're helpless to resist against it. So then we see like the final shots is like all the weeds growing throughout the farm, and then beyond that, and in the background, just nice and quietly, you hear the weather report.
It'll be a good one for you farmers. It's that very sinister, downbeat ending. The story, we're about to get to the end of this bit, but this story ain't over. It is not going to end well. So I like that sort of dark, sinister ending, Quite funny as well, being a Stephen King story. The road sign, Castle Rock, 5 miles. God, if ever a town had a bad time of it.
As a segment, I think this one works well. King's performance, it is what it is. It's very hammy, but it's in a comic book fucking anthology. What do you expect?
Yeah, and it is the most cartoon story in there, certainly in terms of performance, but it does have that poignancy to it. But this is kind of the point I was talking about earlier, was if we're looking at stories here where there is a sense of people having something happen to them that they deserve, where does Geordie Verrill deserve any of this?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not sure what punishment he's getting here, or he just seems to be that poor unfortunate bastard who...
Well, exactly, yeah, but it's not someone doing it to him. It's something. It's completely external. It's from fucking space. And he is merely first. It's implied that it's going to happen to everyone else.
Oh, yeah. But if we're looking at this thing in terms of the moral aspect that they're talking about, the things they're going back to.
Yeah, but with the other ones, it tends to be people or things that are attacking them and they're getting their comeuppance. There's not a zombie attacking them. It's just bad shit happens.
Well, I suppose the thing is he doesn't have any luck, isn't it? That's the key here.
Errol Luck is always out. Spell that B-A-D.
And so it's farewell to poor Geordie.
I think overall he deals with his situation reasonably well. He finds himself in a bad spot. Who would deal with it any better?
It's a good question. Very human way of dealing with it, isn't it?
It's the same way that I've always liked that bit in American Werewolf when Jack and David get attacked in the moors. David's first instinct is to run away. That's what you would do. Fucking werewolf comes up.
What are you supposed to do? Can you fight off a wolf? It's like that old joke, isn't it? The one about the two guys in a tent, out in the plain, and then they hear a lion, and the first guy starts lacing up his shoes, and the second guy says to him, "What the hell are you doing that for? There's no way you can outrun a lion." He says, "Fuck the lion. As long as I can outrun you, I'm all right."
It's such a horror movie trope that they go down to the basement, they go and investigate the spooky noise. You go, why are you doing that? But here, it's all quite understandable.
It's believable. Yeah.
Maybe you would be expected to take it to the Department of Meteors, but
But you would take it to the university. You would take it to the science department or whatever, or the museum or what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
his idea of what there's going to be. So
Yeah, I like this one. It's a bit of a slow burner, but I think given that it's a pretty much a solo performance, King has to be a very broad performance in it because he's got no one to act off of. There's no drama with anyone else. Yeah, so I think that also partly explains it.
yeah, maybe that works in his favour.
He's got to be much louder as a character.
No, that's true. Yeah, it's broad, but it needs to be, I think, for him to do it. If he tried playing it straight, I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah, it would have been really boring if it just been someone doing things just normally and sanely and tidily.
True.
Dull, wouldn't it?
And it's funny you say about it being quite a slow piece as well, because I think it's the shortest one of the entire film. I think this one's only about 14, 15 minutes. It doesn't outstay its welcome, it tells a story, gets everything in there. It's different from the others. There you go.
Okay, so moving on from that, again, we go through the comic book transition, and rather nicely, we see the advert for the voodoo doll, which will become important later on.
Yes.
You might also notice that there's a bit cut out of the page.
Mm-hmm. Well spotted, yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that.
A nice little touch there.
Yeah.
So then we've brought something to tide you over, which I feel is the fulcrum of the film. It's the main story, the most dramatic one, probably the best one overall, the one with the best performances, the best imagination. I mean, to come up with this idea is Stephen King can have a completely fucking savage imagination at times. Some of his most savage stories, Grey Matter, for one, is fucking horrible. I think we both know Survivor Type.
Oh, fingers, lady fingers.
Yeah, I think even Stephen King finds that one a bit much.
Yeah, but if you're going to write a horror story, a short horror story, that's the kind of thing you want to do.
To come up with that, and it's not just the idea, but the execution of it is just fucking phenomenal. The slow descent into madness. Night Shift as well, the title story.
Yeah.
You read that one about the rats and the bats? And
yes.
Very Lovecraft, but at the same time, very modern and completely believable. It's just amazing. A lot of the times, Stephen King does his honest Stevie, here's normal folks sort of stuff, but oh fuck me, he loves to do really malevolent stuff as well.
And I think that's where he's at his best. And I think because he goes down some roads that you think, I can't believe he went there. You get that far.
Most famously, the scene in It.
Oh, don't.
But he said the same about Pet Sematary, which was that he found it very, very bleak and dark, which is the moral of the story being sometimes it's better to be dead.
Yeah. Part of this, right, one of the big rules of, for films, and not so much probably for horror, but there is one of these seeming rules that you don't kill the kid. And he doesn't have a problem with that, certainly in his earlier stuff. So when it does happen, it tends to resonate.
There's a film which I remember, I've mentioned it to you before, called Suburbia, directed by Penelope Spheris, Wayne's World, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And was it her that did Decline of Western Civilization, about the punk scene and the metal scene in LA in the late 80s? I imagine this is more my field than yours.
You may be right on that score, actually. The name rings a bell, but I haven't seen it.
Anyway, basically, it's about a group of teenage runaways in LA. So they live in this abandoned house. There's like this shitty area of suburbia that they live in. And we're introduced to one teenage boy, and he runs away and he joins this group of runaways, right?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, everything's sort of hunky-dory. They go around nicking stuff from people's garages, like food, etc., etc. They go to punk gigs. So then they steal away his younger brother, who's 5 years old, to get him to join them. So they give him like a big mohawk, and he loves it, staying out late all night, yada, 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 yeah? Spoilers, but he dies. That's the end of the film. And it's a completely shocking ending, but his death is like, it's the death of innocence. It's the death of all that's over. It's ended now, all that fun rebellion is gone. It works on a dramatic and on a symbolic level, so...
Sounds like a bad lot laugh.
Well, it's a very raw film. It's well worth watching. I do recommend it.
Okay.
Anyway, So we start off, Ted Danson's taking a nap, and bing bong, someone at the door, and it's...
Leslie Nielsen.
I had never seen Leslie Nielsen in a purely dramatic role before. I've always just seen him in comedies.
Do you know what? Neither had I, and I've only ever seen him in one role in Forbidden Planet where he's doing that.
He's fucking good, isn't he?
He's good, but you do expect a joke or something because it's Leslie Nielsen, and he's infamous. And the story's coming back from the set on this one. You've heard these, I'm sure. He always carried around his fart machine with him.
Yeah.
Going out for dinner with Ted Danson and some of the crew, and a woman came over and asked him for his autograph. He's like, "Yeah, sure." But yeah, he's good in this. I like it. Wearing a very, very impressive chunky sweater.
Oh yeah,
looks very comfortable, and then that wonderfully velvety velour tracksuit later on with his medallion.
Oh yes, indeed, yeah. There are some funny lines in it, as you say, when he's wearing his velour tracksuit, and he's going, "No need to get jumpy. They've just all gone blup blup blup."
Yeah. And the way he just sort of dances towards the TV with his drink when he's watching them drowning.
But again, there's a nice arc for his character. At the beginning, he acts very calmly, emotionlessly, and then at the end, it's hysterical, raving, fear and panic.
Oh yeah, complete hysterics. And there's a couple of interesting points along that line, but I suppose we can get to them as we talk through this. But can I just ask at this point, is Ted Danson?
Is Marvin Gaye?
Was Barry White? That's a great drinking game, that one. Just make people's names into questions, including my all-time favourite, has William Shatner.
Good one.
So, anyway, Ted. Sorry. Ted, just about to do Cheers, Danson.
Yeah. He started Cheers the same year.
Gosh, he's such a rectangular head, hasn't he? I mean, there's a square jaw, and then there's this. It's just...
Oh, yeah. It's classically proportioned.
You rave about Cheers a lot, and I have never really given it much of a chance. I've always thought, you know what, Frasier is the best thing in it, so I'm happy just watching Frasier. So I really should give it a go.
Oh, you should. And you have to watch it, Series 1, Episode 1, and work your way through, because it was basically the first comedy show to have a narrative arc across the season.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's so good, just the way that they work in so many of these plot elements as it goes along, and the way that they work in having so many characters, and that really develops over time, like the number of characters, obviously introducing Frasier, and then they introduce like others like Phil, and Coach is such a nice character, but then they replace him with Woody when he dies. Oh, it's really good. Do give it a chance.
I will.
Anyway.
So there's Ted, doing his thing.
He goes into the house, tells them that he knows about the affair. Then he's got the audio of, is it Rebecca?
I think it might be, played by Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Not really sure I've seen her in anything else, to be honest, apart from these two. But
yeah, so he's got the audio of her pleading for her life and says, "Well, you better come with me if you want to save her." So off they go down to a road near the shore. Leslie Nielsen has got this brilliant line, "Come on, I'm sure she wants to see you, her knight in shining corduroy."
I'm not quite sure what Leslie Nielsen actually does. He's clearly something in electronics, and it's clearly made him a lot of money, presumably hi-fi and TV equipment. We're never quite sure what the relationships between these people are. I mean, I suppose he's the husband, she's the wife, and he's the lover. That's kind of all you need to know. But but what does he do? Because he seems to live in quite a nice place himself.
Yeah.
Just Ted. Yeah,
as you say, it's not really made clear, but does it need to be? The focus is very much on the drama between the two of them.
Yeah, it's a two-hander, and it's a really, really good piece, this one. When they play really well off each other.
When Leslie Nielsen first brings out the gun, when Ted Danson is run towards the pit and finds it's empty, picks up the shovel, Leslie Nielsen comes towards him with a gun, and then you see the genuine fear in his eyes, apprehension, and it's fucking really well done.
Yeah.
Old Ted could act.
And I think a good point of this, and there's a useful point of identification in these films, that you can put yourself in the situation. Talking there before about Geordie Verrill, you can imagine yourself, what if I was in that situation? What if it happened to me? And then buried up to your neck in sand with the tide coming in. I mean, I can't be the only one who was sitting there thinking, how long can I hold my breath for? You know, I could get out of that. Well, no, you couldn't, because you might as well be stuck in clay. There's no purchase. There's no way for you to push yourself out of this. The weight of everything pressing against you. And those beach scenes do not look like they were a barrel of laughs for Ted and Galen to be filming, to be honest. It doesn't look the safest.
So he's told to go into the pit or to get shot, and then he has to drag in the sand, and then he's buried up to his neck.
And then he's stuck there.
Then see how the tide comes in? Oh, and then Leslie Nielsen sets up the TV and video so he can watch.
Mm-hmm.
And she's further down the beach, so the water's already lapping up over her. Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, it's grim. We're watching all this live.
That is truly fucking sadistic. To come up with that.
Dark stuff from the pen of someone with quite a twisted mind, who comes across as quite a balanced and quite a nice guy.
Apart from the severe cocaine addiction.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it was the 70s and then the 80s. But it's funny, we were talking earlier about this being very, very similar to The Ledge. You know, that idea of a guy being forced to do something for the sake of the woman that he's involved with. I mean, is it different enough, or does it feel like he's ripping off his own stuff here?
I couldn't tell you because I haven't read The Ledge.
Oh, okay then. Well, in that case, let's just draw a discreet veil over this.
Is that in Skeleton Crew?
It was adapted for Cat's Eye, and Cat's Eye was, 80...
I guess that would mean it must be a night shift.
I think it must be, yeah. It must be one of the early 80s ones.
I think Skeleton Crew was mid-80s. I remember seeing it around then. I mean, the point that you raise, well, I mean, he's adapted his own work. It's his own work, so why?
Well, I suppose if it hasn't been adapted before, then there's no real reason not to, I suppose. You know, he takes an idea and develops it, and it's like, well, I'm not copying anything that's already been put on screen, so, yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we'll give him that. There's actually some really good behind-the-scenes and outtake footage from this. In fact, there's a very, very good making-of documentary called Just Desserts.
Really?
Which is, you can actually see on YouTube, if you have a look for it, some great little bits and pieces of Ted Danson and Galen Ross dicking about. Apparently when they were being made up in the makeup room, they started doing their lines in a deep southern drawl. And it was hilarious. It's like, oh, you've got to do at least one take where we do it like this. Nah, I didn't do it.
Oh, was there not the story as well about how Ted Danson's daughter saw him dressed up when he was in his full watery zombie gear, and she just went, "Hi, Dad."
Yeah, I have heard that one, yeah.
So we see the water starting to come in. Leslie Nielsen makes a hasty retreat. The TV shorts out. We see the water ominously lapping up closer and closer and closer.
And it's the way that it builds this up. It's the tension. It's the way that it takes its time just to keep it going and keep it going. So you're there with Ted. You're feeling this. Oh my God! And it just cranks things up. So you do feel really unsettled with this.
Yeah. And then he comes back to his house and he's watching the two of them.
Yeah, I think he comes back.
And he's completely impassive. But that ain't going to last, Les, my boy.
I think it's quite odd as well, the way with Ted Danson. It's just the way that it's only as the final wave heads towards him that he finally seems to realise there's no way out of this.
Well, I've wanted to ask because, as you say, it's that dawning realisation. But I don't think it's a dawning realisation that he's going to drown, because that's pretty obvious. It seems to be like a dawning realisation of what he can do. In other words, somehow he can be Zombie Ted. Because it's just after that when he says, "Richard, I'm going to get you."
Well, I don't know if he realises he can do that. I think it's just that sheer hatred of him and that in that moment. That it's that thing about ghosts being spirits of someone who has such hatred or something that has been left undone or unsaid. The thing that's odd, though, is that when he comes back, spoilers, they look like they've been under the water for weeks.
Yeah.
Rather than just a few hours earlier.
That dawning realisation look on his face has puzzled me for some time, and I've always justified it that way, because you've got to think, well, it's pretty obvious that he's going to drown.
Well, it doesn't seem to be that obvious to him, though, until that point. All of a sudden, hang on, the tide's going to keep coming in.
Well, whatever it is, after that, got that brilliant shot of his head completely underwater and the seaweed around him, and then there's that like pink backlight behind his head, so it's like an aura. As
he slowly starts to run out of breath.
It's like how they did that, put like two boards like around his neck, then like with like fake sand, and then he had like a oxygen mask which they would remove, and then they would start filming.
Yep, and then pass it back to him. And Tom Savini was standing off one side with a hammer in his hand just in case he smashed the tank.
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't look overly comfortable, I have to say.
well, this is the thing. Fair play to Ted Danson, and I suppose to Galen Ross as well, the way that the things they go through in this film, just to film it, not forget the actual characters. This is just, God, suffering for your art.
But to really go through that with all the water coming over your head the whole time, fuck. So then we've got Les is back the next day, collecting his TV from the sand. And then he's just pondering to himself, Tide must have taken them out.
Tide must have taken them out, yeah. Despite the fact that he would have been 6 feet tall. There's no way the tide's taken them, but okay. He's trying to convince himself.
So then
anyway,
back at his house.
And what a house it is.
Pretty nice. 70s hi-fi system.
It's ultra modern. And as a result, ultra dated.
And he's going through his VHS collection. Sort of wonder who else has he knocked off that he's filmed.
Yeah, I'd love to know what's on those tapes.
And then he's starting to get a bit edgy. The tension slowly rises. And he's going, no need to get jumpy. They all went rub, 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 rub. And then there's the ominous shadows.
This is again about the build-up. Again, that taking the time and just a little glimpse of something here, a shadow here, a movement there, a glimpse of a dripping kelp-covered sleeve, a bit of smoke, on the camera. Well, so he decides to go for a shower.
As you do. And he's got all the sort of Asian interior decor as well, which, as you see, dates it so much. Yeah. I think we've got a few things like that.
Well, plus I think because a lot of the equipment that he's dealing with, the video and TV and hi-fi stuff, presumably if that's his line of work, then he's going to be getting a lot of this stuff from
the Japs.
Probably does a lot of business over there.
Yeah, it's quite the CCTV system. What's he got, like 8 screens?
Yeah, it's a surprising number.
And so goes and takes a shower, pulls on his dressing gown, and then you've got that lovely skew when the camera angle.
Yeah, from that point on, the camera just starts to turn.
When that happens, shit's going pear-shaped.
It's a bit Batman, isn't it? It just puts you off. Things are off kilter, I suppose.
Yeah. Then he's opening the door, then
there they are.
Then the beautifully overlit blues and reds again. Oh, and the seaweed dripping off them. Oh, fucking great.
Yeah, it is an impressive image, despite the fact that there's no way they've been under that long. So,
well, think how pruny you get after a bath. That's all it helps. And he shoots them in the head, and they keep coming. The blood.
We dug a hole
out.
for you, Richard.
You can't kill us. We're already dead.
Oh, the voices is just that gurgling.
Yeah, and then he's like in his panic room, locking the door, and then somehow they got in.
And again, this is where you get the horror film logic.
Yeah.
They're clearly some sort of supernatural thing. They're not just zombies.
He's managed to put that tiny snib on the door, though.
I mean, good on him. But it's just, again, it's that sudden turn shock 6 inches away from you. There they are. And at that point, he completely loses his shit and starts getting hysterical.
The screaming hysterics is fucking great.
It is. He really gives it his all in this.
Yeah. Fear, terror, panic. Beautiful.
Yep.
And then you see him in the sand going, I can hold my breath for a long, long time.
And then the first wave comes in, and he suddenly doesn't look so sure. However, apparently, this came up as I was reading about this one. Originally, the scripted ending for this was a bit different for this segment, right? So, originally, the police turn up because they've received a call from a very panicked and hysterical Richard, who tries to tell them that he's been visited by zombies, and then tries to convince them by switching on one of the videos to show them, the security footage from the house. Instead, what they see is the recording of the murder that he's made.
Oh, nice.
And as such, he ends up being convicted of murder and given a death sentence. And the segment is supposed to end with him in a gas chamber as the gas comes in, rolling on the floor with the same lines, I can hold my breath for a long, long time.
I prefer the drowning.
Yeah, it adds an extra length of time to this that wouldn't really, I think, have worked. Yeah,
and so many more external characters that you don't need.
I mean, there would be a much more poetic justice element to it, but that would probably be more suited to something like Tales from the Crypt. Actually, they seem to have more of that sort of like, you caught yourself out kind of thing. But
no, this is beautifully savage.
Yeah,
Great.
it's a good one, this one. 25 minutes as well. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't outstay its welcome.
The acting in it is fucking beautiful. Ted Danson is superb. When you see his panic, his fear, and again, Leslie Nielsen's the arc going from this psychopathically calm at the start towards this complete raving loony at the end. Great. Fucking great. So, yeah, I think that's the centerpiece of the film, isn't it?
Well, literally, yeah.
Yeah. So we go from that to, again, it's the comic book, it's in the bin, and then it says, blown away in the wind, and we're led to the crate.
There's a lot to like about this one. I think this one outstays its welcome, though, because this is by far the longest segment in the film. This one hits about 38 minutes, and it feels like it. They could have trimmed a good 10 minutes at least out of this, possibly 15, without losing too much. There's a lot of going back and forth. However, let's go through it, Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel the same. I feel this is the weakest segment in the film. There's great things in it, but as you say, it's overly long. There are numerous good things about it. I mean, the cast is great.
This top notch. And that's, as you were saying earlier, I mean, this film generally has a fantastic cast for the type of film it is. It's quite it's a genre film, it's quite a cheesy idea,
it's not just genre, but it's ironic as well. It's pretty wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But at the same time, they've got some sterling character actors in there.
And I think one of the points that was made from some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and interviews and bits and pieces I was reading was that these people were interested in doing it because they were serious about what they were doing, and it went down pretty well. So,
we get introduced to them, and you've got the loud, brash wife. And a couple of times I've wondered during the film, in fact, is there a sort of undercurrent of misogyny that goes through it? You've got the Father's Day, you've got the mom, the crate here, you've got the Billy, who is a completely obnoxious, drunken, pain in the ass bint.
Do you know what? That's the first thing I've got written in this, is on my notes here for this section, is who's the real monster in this? Yeah, I mean, Adrienne Barbeau and her chest.
She's wonderful.
She is unbelievably good in this, and she is having a ball playing this. Come on, she just gives it everything.
That's what actors often say, is to playing baddies is often the most fun.
You can just be completely unlike yourself in a lot of these cases. You can give it your all.
Not much subtlety to it.
No. But it doesn't need to be, does there? I mean, she just makes that character so... Surely we all know somebody who's a bit like that, or somebody who's stuck with somebody like that, and you can totally sympathise with Hal Holbrook there as
his delicate pain. But I sort of wonder though, is it a bit misogynistic though to have this irritating wife that you just want to fucking shoot in the head?
I'm not sure. I mean, are the female characters in the film particularly ill served?
Well, they're not irritating because they're female. They're irritating because of what they do, and they are loudmouth, pain in the arse. But that could be anyone, any gender could be that. So it's not that what she does is especially womanly. It's just who she is.
Yeah.
But, I've heard criticism of films that have, like, women as pains in the ass, and people saying, oh, that's misogynistic. And Blair Witch Project, for example. Like, the character of Heather is quite bossy, etc., etc. But it's not really misogynistic, because that's just who she is. That's a character.
That's a people thing. That's not dependent on your sex. That's the individual. That can be male, female, or other.
Exactly. The fact that this woman, who is the leader out of the two guys as well, it's like, oh, okay, so the guys take the piss out of her. So is that misogynistic? Or is it just them being scared and treating anyone the way they would anyone else who was in that position?
Yeah, well, she's certainly the most dominant and the most strong-willed character in there. Yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, I can see it being... I can imagine it if you did this the other way around, right? So it was a female professor at the university and the boorish, drunken husband. You could if they were to remake it, you can see it being done in the same way. I don't think it would be... I think it works either way. I mean, I can't see that it would be... It has to be female, so I don't really follow that it's it's a particularly misogynist thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I would say that because I'm a man. But
Yeah, sexist pig.
I know, terrible. I can't win.
Yeah, you with your testicles and everything.
Can I just make a wee point here on, since we're at the early points of this story? Did you know originally this story and Something to Tide You Over were the other way around in the film?
No.
Apparently they were. It must have been quite a late change script-wise, but nobody told whoever was doing the comic book.
Oh, right.
And you'll have a copy of that kicking about, sure.
Somewhere,
yeah. So that's why you'll notice the two are the wrong way around.
God, I don't think I actually noticed that.
Well.
So anyway, we're introduced to this rather Ivy League setup. There's the cocktail. Well, it's not really a cocktail party. They're all drinking like summer drinks out of wine glasses.
It's just a mixer, isn't it? Yeah. Like a fruit cup.
And she's going, call me Billy, everyone does. And you're like, oh, God, fuck. They're all in their nice suits. She's in this loud pink dress showing her cleavage.
I mean, I don't want to dwell on this, but it's a good cleavage. You would show it off.
Well, there's quite the contrast with the other matronly sort of woman who's got the dress all the way up to her neck.
Oh, that's true, yeah. In fact, I think all the women there, apart from her, are dressed like that, aren't they?
So again, it's this it's very New Englandy sort of preppy sort of environment, isn't it?
Yeah.
What Stephen King would have been like if he'd been born into money. I guess he kind of feels like, fuck these cunts.
I can't quite work out how she and Henry ended up together, though. I would love to know that story. I mean, she, weak-willed.
Well, do they have kids? Did he knock her up? There's no kids mentioned, is there?
No.
He's a steady man with a steady job.
And very little else, really. He's got his chess matches with Dexter.
Maybe she just worsened over time. She might have been charming to begin with, and then the booze just got her. She might be frustrated with the academic environment, and she prefers a more blue collar, out to the pubs and bars.
When she goes off to a class, I'm curious as to know what is she going off to a class. Where's she heading to? Is she just heading down, to a bar
to get nailed by Leroy? Yeah.
There we go. We've got the situation there. She's horrific. He's downtrodden and fantasizes about killing her.
And you've got that lovely relationship between him and Dexter.
Now, this is a proper bromance. I love this relationship between the two of them.
Right. Well, I'll let you say your piece first.
Okay. I mean, there's something about this that it's not a homoerotic relationship or a sense of it. But there's certainly elements of this that make me think of something like Rope or Strangers on a Train.
Oh, really?
There's a bit of a vibe there, and it's something, particularly when you get to the end of it, the two of them just settling down in their leather chairs to play chess. Yeah. Their relationship is so much sweeter than his relationship with her.
Undoubtedly. But what I was going to say, and I was going to discuss why, it irritates me that occasionally you'll have strong relationships between male characters and people will say it's bromance. There doesn't have to be anything homoerotic in a friendship, and it can be a great love. There's nothing erotic or homoerotic within that. It's just a great relationship and a great love and a great appreciation for each other, and that does not have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be anything. It can just be a great friendship.
Well, you've pretty much just summed us up there, haven't you?
And it irritates me how people go searching for a sexual motive behind things the whole time. Sometimes there's no sexual thing there at all.
I'm not searching for anything here. It's just something that just sort of picked up here.
That's good to know, my lad.
There's a really... And again, it's maybe just because there's that thing about the two of them sat facing each other chatting and this idea of a murder potentially coming along. It makes me think of something like Strangers in a Train. You're right, it's not necessarily a homoerotic thing. That's possibly the wrong phrase, but there's something about that relationship. Maybe because it's such a warmer and closer relationship than he clearly has with his own wife.
Yeah, exactly. It's the contrast between their relationship and the relationship with the wife.
If you compare and contrast the two, then that one comes out as being much more
rewarding and fulfilling. Okay, let's go through it then.
So we have the two of them. We've got Hal Holbrook and Adrienne Barbeau, both in the fog. They never shared any scenes in that film. That's what I was thinking about earlier.
Okay.
And of course, he was Deep Throat in All the President's Men. He's got one of those great faces, hasn't he, Hal Holbrook?
Oh, he does.
And fantastic hair.
Oh, extraordinarily characterful.
A
Fair play to
fantastic character actor. One of those that never the star, but if he's there, there's quality there.
So anyways, Dexter gets the call from the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at the crate, so he goes in to join the janitor. Then the janitor opens up the box, shoves his arm in, as you do.
Well, eventually opens the box. See, and this is part of the problem. This segment is just far too long.
They bring it out and they take it back to the lab.
Yeah, they didn't need to go down all this.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get anywhere, that's the thing.
Yeah. And there's the further scene of malevolence with Billy. What would you do without me, Henry? Be happy, you bitch.
Do you know what? The fantasy wish fulfillment, the glee of those murder fantasies that he has, I can't work out whether I find them funny or not.
Oh, they are funny, aren't they?
They're funny, but...
They're black.
But should you be... That's the thing, is that should I feel guilty for finding this amusing?
It's very black humour, and I don't think we need to analyse it further than that.
I think we've all been in relationships like that.
I'm saying nothing. So we're back at them. They've got the crate. They're opening it up. And then what does the stupid fucking janitor do? He sticks his arm in.
Sticks his hand in.
And suddenly the lights all go bright pink and purpley.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
And we get our first glimpse of Fluffy.
Of Fluffy. Yeah. See, and this is my other great problem with this segment, which is that as a monster, Fluffy ain't all that.
Ooh.
I don't think he's a great monster. One, we don't see a lot of him. It's very few glimpses.
There's plenty of them, though.
And then it just looks like a monkey baboon with big teeth.
There is a monkey element to it, yeah.
Probably has a pink arsehole as well. But that scene just after that, when Dexter runs through the corridor and he comes up upon the graduate student and he's gibbering in panic and fear. Oh, that's great.
That is some fantastically well and truly over the top, but I mean, he's just gone to pieces here.
And I love it as well because the graduate student is such a graduate student. He's even got pens and pencils in the pocket of his fucking polo neck. It's Martin Prince 20 years later.
Oh, dear.
So the student's like, oh, the crate's gone, but there's a suspicious trail of blood. We better follow that. Oh, it's gone back under the stairs. You go there. Yeah, I'll give you a torch.
Yeah, I'll go and have a look here. Oh, wait, it's actually not in the crate. Where exactly was it hiding? That's not a big space under the stairs.
No, it's not.
And it does lead to that great special effect of latching onto the side of the guy's head and then just ripping a section out of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, that
is an impressive bit of work.
And he tries to attack him with the spanner and Fluffy's on him.
Does nothing, just bonk. Oh, what? No, you just made him angry.
And he's trying to get out and he's dragging him back.
Yeah.
And then, I'll have your head, mate. Oh,
literally.
Yeah, tear them apart. Beautiful.
And then Dexter just bolts.
So then he bolts to Henry's house.
It is a great performance. Was it Fritz Weaver? Fritz Weaver playing Dexter there.
Remember that internet meme of, you know who your real friends are? If somebody phoned you in the middle of the night and said, oh, I accidentally killed someone, a friend would say, better turn yourself in. A real friend would say, how are we going to dispose of the body? Very much a touch of that in this, isn't there?
Well, it's that thing, isn't it, about the word, is it Japanese, the word for crisis? It's also the same as opportunity.
Crisitunity.
Crisitunity, yeah. It's like, oh,
it's supposed to be Chinese.
Chinese, sorry. Not. But you think, wait a minute, I can see a way out of this.
Yeah.
It could solve both our problems.
A thing that will attack people and kill them. Do I have any use for that?
How can I use this advantage?
And no one's heard of it.
Interesting.
And he's pulling him tumbler after tumbler. Is it brandy or whiskey?
I would assume it's good quality whiskey. I think it's herself that's on the brandy.
It's a lovely study, though, isn't it? It's very masculine. It's leather chairs.
Yeah, it's the kind of room that I aspire to having at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plenty of leather-bound volumes.
And Billy probably goes, oh, Henry, you always have to have your room, don't you? The way you want it. Not like this modern style I want it.
And it's his room, though. It's locked. Keeps it to himself. You know, it's his one sanctuary.
How did you get Billy? Does he pick her up from class, or how did? Oh, he leaves a note, doesn't he?
She's off meeting Leroy or whatever, and she's at her class, and he leaves her this really juicy note that she's not going to be able to resist. A combination of intrigue and sucking up.
And gossip.
And gossip. Yeah. Oh, well. But the thing is, though, Dexter clearly does have something going on with female students, which she clearly is aware of as well.
So, Billy heads to the university. Hal Holbrook has been mopping up assiduously.
There's quite a bit of mopping up to be done, and that's some pretty genuine-looking blood as well. I mean, that's
some good mopping. And she's, oh, Henry, so useless, no good in bed, no good at making money.
When was the last time you got it up?
God damn, she's pretty harsh, isn't she?
Oh, that's the ultimate one. And then he loses it.
And he's going, wake up! Wake up! And of course the damn thing, what does it do?
Nothing. He just stots her head off the crate about half a dozen times.
Then she starts battering Henry with her handbag. Oh, Henry.
Finally. It's incredibly satisfying when it happens. And I know that's... I don't think this is being misogynist. I think this is just, oh, finally, thank God. I think I would be saying that if I was a woman watching this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been building up to this for a long, long time.
It's been building up for his entire life. This is it. This is his one opportunity.
And the vitriol that's coming from her.
The best bit there is as she's being dragged in and screaming, and he just says, tell him to call you... Why don't you tell him to call you Billy? Everybody else does.
So much pent-up aggression there, Henry?
Yeah, such a fantastically bitter...
So then he crates it up and then he throws it in an abandoned mine back to Dexter's house.
They sit down to play chess.
Glass in hand.
They have their slightly awkward, I know things that will get you convicted, you know things that would get me convicted.
So,
checkmate.
Yeah, let's just carry on as things were then.
Yes, let's do that. But as with the Geordie Verrill story, it just ends on that. Things aren't actually over here.
Yeah, exactly. You've got that beautiful shot of Fluffy's eyes as it's still within the crate. It ain't dead. Oh, no. Overall, there's a lot of good things in that segment, but it takes too long. The monster is disappointing, I feel personally. It's better than average, I'd say, but it's not as good as Something to Tide You Over.
I mean, I think it's a decent enough story. It's just too long. I disagree with you on Fluffy. I think Fluffy's probably my favourite bit of creature design in it.
Really? Okay.
But now you've mentioned the monkey thing, I'm thinking it is a bit like a vampire baboon. I'm trying to get a sense of what the idea behind it. What was it supposed to be? Some sort of Wendigo type Yeti thing, but then Antarctic. Well, I don't know, but it's just something prehistoric almost.
It's a sort of allusion to the thing, maybe something weird in the crate.
Well, there's potentially a wee nod to that because it's the Antarctic expedition and it's addressed to Julia Carpenter.
Oh, I missed that.
I don't know, potentially a coincidence, but who knows? So then, so that was a crate. Yeah, there's just too much there.
They are creeping up on you, which I think is absolutely fucking tremendous as well.
Well, do you know what? This is the one that I always think is the one I tend to forget a bit about.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but it doesn't stick with me much. I don't know why.
I mean, this one, it's gleefully malevolent, and yet it's got the moral righteousness of the EC comics. Upson Pratt is a total fucking arsehole. He's a deeply unpleasant person. He totally gets his comeuppance. His anxieties and fears are all out on the surface, and boy, do they get their comeuppance. Mm. Oh, I just think it's fucking brilliant. And the sense of growing panic building up and up and up, and some of the stages within that are just so horrible. Like that fucking muesli. Oh.
It's that growing sense of, wait, what the hell? And then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then you realise you are completely at the mercy. This whole Howard Hughes thing, this hermetically sealed, isolated environment, which doesn't seem like a bad place to be living.
Well, isn't it implied that it's New York?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. Manhattan somewhere.
Which is a pretty roachy place, apparently is. But then, I lived in Beijing as you obviously know. And we had an apartment there that was fucking roachy. And I tell you, those little bastards give me the terror.
Yeah.
Oh, God. You try and get rid of the fuckers. You know, you'd put down your traps, you'd clear out every place. But unfortunately, I think it was the age of the apartment that we lived in and everything. It was just, there was no getting rid of the little bastards. And it was at night time. Oh, God. I would fear to go into the kitchen at night time.
The crunchy floor.
No, it wasn't like that. But it was just, oh God, I don't even want to talk about it.
Well, you're talking from some personal experience here then, which is...
Yeah. But even before that, I thought objectively it's still a great segment because the sense of rising terror, unease that builds into terror and panic is just phenomenal. And again, as a one-hander, pretty much, he has conversations with other people. Again, he's playing a very broad character, but at the same time, that evil malevolence that he has totally justifies it. You know, he is one bad motherfucker.
Again, the quality of the cast in here, you've got E.G. Marshall, who's an incredibly well-respected actor and properly dramatic, serious, one of the 12 Angry Men, I think it was.
Right.
And let's not forget, he was the president in Superman 2.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, he just plays the character, just makes him into this. It's the worst monsters are the people here. It's clearly a take on Howard Hughes. I mean, thankfully, we don't see the jars of piss or the tissue boxes on the feet, sort of thing.
Or spruce.
I knew you were going to go there.
Take us from Adelaide Airport to the Belgian camp in 15 minutes.
Oh,
sir. Muddle.
Anyway.
Get in. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, all the things here just establishes him as being a total bastard. He has his conversations with his staff, and he's a complete fucking dickhead. He drove one of his employees to death, and then his widow phones him, and he's not sympathetic whatsoever.
No, he's not. He deserves everything that he gets. This is not a pleasant man. And again, I'm sure there are parallels with people in positions of high power now.
Who you might like to see with hundreds of thousands of cockroaches bursting from their skin. In fact, isn't there a certain president of the United States who is quite germophobic himself?
Well, yeah, if you inject yourself with disinfectant, I think you probably get away from worrying about that in one way or another.
There's not much real plot to this. It's just the gradual build-up and seeing gradually more and more cockroaches roaming about. So it's like steps along the way of things building up. So he's eating this sort of muesli paste, then he looks through it, then he opens the box down and the fucking roaches are running through it. Like, oh my God. Looking through the paste and it's like, there must have been the little bastards in there.
But then you get to that sense of, okay, well, how is this happening? Clearly the widow is behind this somehow. But there's no sense of quite how this has been achieved. Maybe there doesn't necessarily need to be, but...
No, I don't think there needs to be an explanation. If everything explains mechanically, it takes away the charm of it, doesn't it? It's just bad shit happens to people who deserve it, and why hey?
Yeah, I suppose. Do you know what's weird? In terms of Stephen King stories, this in some ways reminds me of, not in terms of the characterization or anything, but this is the situation. It reminds me a little bit of, it's in Night Shift, it's called Battleground.
All right.
The salesman pinned down and fighting against toy soldiers. And I can't remember the context of why he ends up in that situation, but there's a similar feeling of that sort of someone trying to take revenge on him because he's done something to piss them off or undermine them or he's ruined somebody.
Okay.
And the idea of this minuscule army of weight of numbers, and apart from the fact that in their case they also have a nuclear bomb, but there's a toy atom bomb or something that ends up being used as the sort of the ultimate weapon. A cracking story. But yeah, there's just elements of that feel very similar to this in terms of the tone or the ideas of it rather than the practicalities of it.
As I say, I'm not sure if it's directly implied that it's the guy's wife who's behind it. It just seems like establishing that he's a total cunt. And
I'm sure that there was something she'd said that made it very clear that she'd done something or she'd arranged something that maybe not. I mean,
interesting that we have this different takes on it. Anyway, either way, the roaches build up and build up and build up, and he sees them on his roof, like in the glass. He sees the shadows on the floor below him. Then they're coming out the sink. Then they're just everywhere. They're coming out the vents.
Just the scent. I mean, when they start pouring, literally pouring out of the vent as well.
Oh, and the lights go out, and he's into his panic room. Oh, that is proper horror. That is terror. Because what you see is not that scary as such, but it's just genuine panic and fear and just
yeah. This is not going to end well, especially when the lights go out. And it's one of these. You put yourself in that situation. I mean, all these bugs, bad enough when you can see them, but then you can't.
And he's trying to do the intercom going, Upson Pratt! It's Upson Pratt! Oh.
The weakness all of a sudden in his voice.
Oh, God, and they're on the phone and they're in his jukebox. And
Ooh, going back to the jukebox there. The music that plays at the start of this segment in his jukebox is the same music as plays over the end credits of Evil Dead.
I presume that's a deliberate homage, was it? What year was Evil Dead?
Evil Dead was, 80 or 81?
Yeah, it was earlier, wasn't it? Is it in Dance Macabre that Stephen King says that there's 3 levels of fear which can be used by the horror writer? There's terror, which is in your mind alone. There is horror, which is fear and loathing, like from a dead body, for example. Or there is revulsion at the sight of something disgusting, the maggots broiling out of that eye. And this is great at both horror and revulsion. The revulsion of it is so fucking strong, but it's also horror as well, because you see this person literally attacked by a swarm of utterly disgusting things, and fear and the shaking them off and the panic and the terror. Oh my God.
And I was going to say he ends up consumed by them, but sort of the reverse is true. And then the lights come on again, and they've all gone.
Back to normal. And then there's that lovely ending where he's on his back in his panic room, and then there's a rather ominous bulging that comes from his chest and his arms. A spot of blood out of his head.
Yep, splits in the skin.
Oh, then it come out of his mouth. Oh.
Come out of everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, it gets quite horrific, doesn't it?
Yeah. Apparently they spent $250,000 on the cockroaches.
They had 250,000 cockroaches, and Romero reckoned they cost 50 cents each.
Oh.
That's a lot of money. They were supposed to, I think, humanely kill them all at the end of the shoot, but I think everybody involved agreed. Counted them all out.
Counted them back in. Yeah. You're not Michael Burke.
Nah.
So
this is the one that gets to you on the revulsion.
Definitely. So I think it's a great segment. The fact that I'm watching it 30 years later and it still makes me totally wince is pretty telling.
And yeah, I mean, we're talking 30 years later, and still, I mean, we're talking special effects now that are almost 40 years old here, and they hold up incredibly well. They're still impressive to look at, and the technical element of it, you can tell when it's just fake. Yeah.
So, again, similar to Geordie Verrill, you have to have that really broad character. I think he does that really well. Like what rats were to London in the 70s, I think the roaches were to New York. They were both a pest and a symbol of political decline, etc., etc., yeah. So, overall, They're Creeping Up on You, I think it's a highly successful segment. It's horrifying, it's chilling, it's extremely revolting. E.G. Marshall's performance is fantastic. It just gives me the pure fear.
Yeah, it's a really unsettling segment, isn't it?
It is.
Stupid thing to say, but it does get under your skin.
Thank you for that.
It's and that last shot just stays with you. The sealed room full of cockroaches, but as well just that probably the money shot of the film, the special effect of the corpse bursting open.
Also the way it moves to the everything just spiraling out of control. You've got the initial glimmers of something going wrong, then it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up, and then pooah!
Yep.
Here is a very nasty person, and he thinks he's got everything under control. Gradually, the cracks start to appear, and then slowly, it's the tipping point.
It's just the universe having a sort of form of poetic justice meted out on him, really, isn't it?
But exactly. It's the universe acting against it, and against him. So that brings us to the end of the segments, and we're brought to the concluding...
the other bookend.
The bookend, yes. So, the Garbage Men. So we've got Tom Savini.
Of course.
As Garbage Man 2. He's not even Garbage Man 1. And they're browsing through the comic book and saying, look at this. This one's already been done. The Voodoo Doll.
Aha. As you identified earlier.
And so the mum and dad are trying to get the kid downstairs.
Oh, hell, yep.
And suddenly he's got pain in the back of his neck.
Oh, funny that.
Suddenly, pain in the throat, and he's getting stabbed by the voodoo doll. I'll teach you to take away my comic book.
Oh, it's gruesome. Well, it's not gruesome, but it's grim. That's the thing. It's the kid as well. It's the fact that it's the child.
Again, it's so gleeful. It's like, just but people are taking away my comics. Yeah, horror cannot be messed with, or you'll get what's coming to you. Is it such a crime? Looking at it from the parental perspective, 20 or 30 years later, well, little bastard was going through my porn collection.
It's okay that I've got Scud books. It's him with his horror comics. That's the problem.
The hypocrisy of it, yeah. Okay, well, let's summarise. Does the film still stand up?
I think it does.
I think it does very well.
I think it does. I think it
helps to be aware of EC Comics vibe. If you didn't really know that, then it would just be presenting it to you, so you might not fully appreciate it. But the directing style always gives it like an irony, a sort of wink wink. This isn't to be taken too seriously sort of vibe to it. Because you've got that bold colours, the reds and the blues and everything. You've got all those comic book opening and closings for each segment. It's kind of obvious that they're not taking it too seriously.
Yeah, it clearly pushes it beyond. I mean, if you try to play this straight, it would not work.
No. Well, it'd either be really dull, or it would just be like, what the fuck is this? It would be so gruesome and grim. You compare it to Creepshow 2, which didn't have Georgie and Romero.
I suppose we should talk about the various follow-ons from this. So, Creepshow 2 was, 1987? 3 stories, because rather than 5, because they didn't have the same money. And I think, am I right in thinking it was scripted by Romero rather than directed?
It was, yes.
Stephen King wasn't involved at all, although obviously the Hitchhiker and The Raft.
The Raft, Bats of Cat's Eye.
Yeah, Creepshow 2 doesn't really work, because it has that odd old Chief Wooden Top. It doesn't really work at all. The Raft, I think, is about the only good bit in the film. Again, that has that sense of glee and horrific thing, the slick that eats you, the blob in water.
The directing has none of the wit or the style of Georgie and Romero. It's all very functional.
It feels very TV.
Yeah. Aye, so don't go and watch Creepshow 2. Watch the first one.
I would say watch Creepshow 2, but don't expect a lot from it. I would say do not watch Creepshow 3. It's just crap. Was it? I think it was last year, or year before, maybe they launched Creepshow as a streaming series.
And I've only seen the first episode so far, so the first 2 little segments. Well, the first one, obviously, is, I think we talked before, Grey Matter, the Stephen King short story. Yeah. And then I think the sequel, the second is just probably a new story. It's certainly one I wasn't familiar with before, about a zombie head in a doll's house. But Grey Matter, I mean, I think it sits quite nicely in with the films. I mean, it's got Adrienne Barbeau in it, for one thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little Stephen King references in there, possibly too many, because I got a little bit distracted trying to spot them all.
Really?
Like what? Talking about the missing Grady twins. There are lost pet posters up on a couple of walls for a dog called Cujo and a cat, which I think is a cat from Pet Sematary.
Oh, was it Church?
I think it might be.
Yeah, I watched the Grey Matter one. I liked it. I mean, it was, suitably, horribly disgusting and everything. My one sort of problem with it was that the guy who is affected by the Grey Matter, he's supposed to be this, like, big, porky, fat fucker in the story. But in the film, he's quite slim. It would have been nice to have this real, like, sort of chubby fat fucker, this real beer hog happening to him. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
But I suppose you can't you can't be malevolent about fat people now.
Well, maybe not. But I guess for me, it's more, there's a particular description or a particular bit in the short story that I remember, which is a description of just a blob of jelly with one single eye.
Yes. Ugh.
And that is a very, very, the mental image that one gave me was quite, but
Yeah.
kind of, they didn't really do that.
Uh-huh. The ending bit where it's starting to divide, though.
Oh, yeah.
Divide and multiply.
Doing the maths.
Oh, that's grim, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It ties in nicely with the Geordie Verrill story in that sense. This is going to keep going and going, and there's no happy ending here.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. I like those Stephen King short stories, which are set in really unpleasant, poor, sort of nasty settings. Once he gets into the 90s, he always seems to be writing about rich people, and it's really boring.
Yeah, I kind of stopped reading his stuff after about Misery.
I really find there's a falling away. The last book of his I really tried to read was Bag of Bones, and yet again, the protagonist is a writer again, and he's a millionaire again. And it's like, you don't fucking care.
Well, you write about what you know. That's...
God.
Did he write one about a guy who gets run over by a truck?
I think he did.
He did, right, okay.
Yeah. God.
I love that. I love that Family Guy sketch. You've seen that one about...
Brian. Lamp.
No, well, there was that one, but there's the other one with just Brian driving through a forest in a little truck, and then some guy walks out in front of him and he accidentally runs him over. Comes running back. He's like, "Oh my God, are you Stephen King?" He's like, "No, I'm Dean Koontz." So he goes in and runs him over again.
No, I hadn't seen that.
But yeah, the Stephen King one. It's a haunted lamp. Oh, look, it's scary. You're really not trying anymore, are you? Yeah. When can we have it? It's a shame. I mean, I prefer his short stories. I must be honest.
Yeah. Really?
I tend to find the books seem to, well, particularly as he goes on, they get flabbier and flabbier, and the stories kind of focus things a bit more. He
really needs a vicious editor to come in and say, "Steve, stop fucking dicking about. Get back to the point."
Yeah.
Right? We don't need all this shite here. I'm going to blue pencil all this chapter because you were just dicking about. Fucking get on with it.
You've got all this stuff in here that makes no sense and is completely... I mean, what is it? What are Bucky Thistle? I mean, come on.
Why are you mentioning them?
I still want to know how the hell that ended up in there.
I mean, what's charming, I think, about Creepshow is, and not just these two greats working together, but it's the charm of this homage to the 1950s.
There's a love and a respect for the material that they're homaging here. It's not a piss take. If I was watching this now, say age 15, for the first time, I think it would still work. I would probably find it cheesy in that way that you cannot avoid.
Because it is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels so 1982, the look and the sound and everything. But you know what? It works. I like it. I think I would enjoy it. I would probably be looking at it as if I was reading one of these horror comics from, say, the period, because it's a document of that time, and the stories that it's telling, they fit nicely. They work. I don't really find. Well, I suppose it's difficult to say if I was watching this as a teenager now. Obviously, everything would be different. But there's a lot of, with the exception maybe of They're Creeping Up on You, those stories could all have been set in the 50s.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And in fact, even They're Creeping Up on You could probably be set during that time as well, because, it's a Howard Hughes character. So,
well, indeed, yeah.
It just wouldn't be as technological, that's the word.
Yeah, I agree. I think Creepshow is tremendous. It's done with love. It's fun. The performances are spot on. The stories are nice and varied. None of them are too long, with the exception of The Crate. But we'll forgive it that. It's garish. It's cartoonish, and it's a lot of fun. So, thumbs up. Wonderful film.
It is. It's fun. That's the good word for it. Fun.
Okay, so next episode,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to be discussing
Weird science.
weird science. Yay!
She's alive. She's alive.
You're dropping wolf bait in there. There's chicks outside.
I'm shitting in my pants.
Oh, this is one that really hits back in the nostalgia.
This is one that I'm curious to know if it's going to stand up quite as well. I think this one might have me wincing watching it, trying to watch this one more objectively.
Yeah, I'm afraid John Hughes, bless him, but he doesn't always come out well compared to the politics of today.
Yeah, so we look forward to seeing how that one comes out.
But I bet you at the same time it's still fun to watch.
And I'm sure it'll stand up better than some.
Okay, so give us a like on YouTube, give us a like on the Facebook page.
And please engage with us on Facebook, have a wee bit of back and forth if you agree, disagree, any points we've missed, or any raging criticisms. Actually, You can probably keep those to yourself.
What do you think about Creepshow? Let us know.